Holy.
But should CHL players be paid at least minimum wage? And that's what I investigated. So what is the CHL? The CHL is considered the major junior hockey league, and it's called the Canadian Hockey League. It's all over Canada, and it's also in Western USA. 65% of the players in the NHL today came from the CHL, so it's called what's a feeder league, meaning like players go there to be seen by the NHL and be drafted by the NHL. So this is a very profitable league. Players get signed contracts to go there, they get drafted to go there, and teams sell tickets to go to the games and to certain events. So this big league is comprised of 3 smaller leagues. The Quebec Junior Major Hockey League, which is just in Quebec. There's 18 teams, and players can play from 16 years old to 20 years old. The Ontario Hockey League, which is in Ontario and a bit of USA. There's 20 teams. It's one of the bigger leagues and one of the most profitable leagues, and there's players again are from 16 to 20 years old. And the Western Hockey League, which is over Western Canada but a lot over Western USA also, has 22 teams and players from 15 to 20 years old. And that league gets the most attendance because out there's not many NHL teams. So the people who come watch see these players as future prospects, and they consider those teams NHL teams, and they go watch them and they follow them like they're an NHL team. So I just want to give you an idea like what it's like at a certain game and how loud it can get. So as you can see, it's not just like a prep school game or anything like that. It's actually, there's a ton of people. There's some arenas that can hold 10,000 people. There's some that can hold 5,000. And the average attendance per arena, if you put everyone together, of the 60 teams in the CHL, is 1,128. So there's a lot of people that go to the games, and the tickets range from $100 to $10, depending where you're sitting. So these owners make a lot of money. So the players sign contracts to play on these teams, and they get drafted. And in the contracts, there's been a lot of speculation what to call the players. Originally they're called semi-professional athletes, but then it changed to independent contractors, and now they're called student athletes. And I'm not sure student athletes is the right thing to call them, because education for these guys is seen as nothing, and one of my buddies who's in the league, who I'm going to talk about later, said that the team values education just as much as if you pack your socks on a road trip. So it means nothing to them. So these players start their season the 20th of September and go all the way to March 17th. And if they make the final CHL tournament, they can go all the way to the end of March. So it's a long season. These players are working from 40 to 60 hours a week. So unlike college hockey, these players have practices, let's say 3 times throughout the whole day, a lift, and then they'll go play a game. So they have no free time for education stuff. Their schedules have to go around their athletic schedule. So they don't really have time for education, even though they pride themselves on being student athletes. So a big thing that when the players go to these leagues is they lose their eligibility. And I don't understand how you can be called student athletes, but then be called by the NCAA semi-professional athletes and then you lose your eligibility. That's another loophole in the league's fine print. And a lot of the players are scared to speak up about the money they're getting, because these are young players. Think about them like 15 to 20 years old, speaking up to the owner of a team who's a big boss who obviously has a lot of money because you have to buy the team. And if you speak up, you can just be thrown away like this, and then you lose everything, and risk versus reward. So every team offers an education package now, which is very recent, and that's why they get to be called student athletes. But the education package is awful. It's 1 season. So you get, for your per season you play, you get 1 year of education paid in Canada, not in USA. If you go, after you're done with these teams, if you go to a semi-professional league, even an awful semi-professional league like the one in Quebec where it's pretty much a fighter's league and you used to play hockey, you lose your whole package. So you have to go straight from there to to school in Canada. And as I said, 65% of players get drafted to the NHL and go play in the NHL from here. So if you want to take your chance and even go to the AHL to just try out for more than 48 hours, all the education package that you earned is gone, no matter what, even if you get hurt. So the average players that actually get the education package is 4 players per team. And that's average. So there's some teams that are better that actually send a lot more players to the NHL that actually get no players that take this education package. And there's a lot of ways to breach the contract. So let's say you get injured or you quit the team or anything that's there's so many loopholes in the contract that so many players get loopholed out of their education package. So let's say you're coming back for 1 year, you get injured, they send you down to juniors, you lose those past 3 years because you went to another team. Or if you get traded throughout the year, you have to restart from step one with that new team. So if you're 20 years old and then it's your last year playing and they trade you to a new team with a week left in the season, you have no education package left. So I'm going to talk about one of my good friends, David Hunter. He played 2 years in the Q, and he decided that, you know what, he wanted to go get an education. He wasn't going to the NHL, or if he went to play pro, he'd been in Europe and not great. So he wanted to go get his education, and he got loopholed out of his education package. He was a 20-year-old, so it was his last year in the league, and the team said to him in a text with his coach that if he wanted, he could take the education package now and get out of it. So that text is not official, and when he actually quit the team, they sent him, and he applied for his education package to the league, and then the league sent him an email back that he breached his contract by not coming back for his final year. So he has no education package now. The team, he can't go back to the team, and he's 2 years behind all his friends. So he's 21 years old right now, and he's still in CEGEP. And CEGEP is pre-college, so it's like grade 12 and grade 13. So all his friends are in university now, and he's still 2 years behind, just because he decided to take a chance and try to get seen by a couple teams in the NHL or pro leagues. So the leagues don't have any minimum wage laws, which is a big problem. They have an unwritten law that the least a player can get is $35 per week, which is, again, considered nothing. These players are working 40 to 60 hours a week for their boss. The range that players can get now from $35 to $150, that's the average. And the overagers on the team, so the guys who are 20, used to get more money, and they take the younger guys out. Because making $35 a week as an athlete, you have to eat. Some of your meals are paid for when you're at the rink, but other stuff, like if you want to go out one night on a weekend or what, none of that's paid for by the team. So you have $35 salary per week, which is considered nothing. So the rare exceptions are the best players in the league, and they get a lot of money. So a big problem with this league also, since there's no minimum wage, the best players who are for sure going to go to the NHL or are going to be stars in the NHL get tons of money in these leagues, and there's players who are alright or just making it in these leagues and making $35 a week. So I put 3 exceptions like McKinnon, Dwayne, and Barkov. All 3 of them are actually playing in the NHL right now, and I'm going to talk about them later. But just to give you an idea, the minimum wage in Canada, or for all these leagues in average, I put them together, is $10.15 an hour Canadian. And these players work 45 to 60 hours a week on average. So you can imagine what they should be paid to what they are being paid. And the average overtime pay through all these leagues is 1.5 times your salary after you work 50 hours a week. So when you have those long road trips and you're considered still working, these players should be getting more than their average salary, yet some of them are only. The only one that's actually giving his name is Sam Bird, and yet there's a ton of former players behind it, but none of them want to give their name because they're scared that their team owners are going to cut them, so they're still currently playing the league. So a little bit of background on Sam Bird. He was injured and cut from the team in the OHL. He got injured, he hurt his shoulder and was sent to junior B team to recover and come back. And then he played 1 full season, so he had at least a year of education package, and his agent actually negotiated a 4-year education package the second he stepped on the ice. So he was guaranteed a 4-year education package if he didn't breach the
hurt his shoulder, and he didn't end up coming back for that next year because he said with his shoulder injury, there's no way he can compete with these guys. He's done. His career's done. He can't go anywhere anymore. So this team saw that as breaching the contract. He didn't get paid anything. He didn't get his education package. He compared himself to a racing greyhound. That's the way the owners see the players. They use them up and they throw them to the side when they're done with him. So his contract had a $50 a week salary with between 32 and 44 hours a week until his injury, where he just lost it all. So a big problem with his contract is it was never forwarded to the league for approval. So that's what big reason why they got rid of his education package. And he was guaranteed 4 years for his education package, and since it was never actually sent to the league because he was only there for a full year and they got around it, the league said, you know what, you did have a package, so we're going to give you a half a year education package. So they pay, and Canada, if you're from Canada and going to the school in Canada, it's not as expensive. And the half a year education package that he got paid was $3,500 for education, which is nothing for giving away a year of your life to play for a team and being guaranteed 4 years, then telling your parents you can only get a half a year. So what would the effects be of putting minimum wage in these leagues? There's some teams that are going to disband. So some of the smaller teams that don't make enough money will disband. 30 out of the teams, though, will for sure stay. But however, Prince Albert and Charlottetown will disband. They only make small teams like this make $100,000 a year in revenue, and it's going to be tough to play all their players and pay all their employees minimum wage. But there's also a ton of teams who make over $1 million a year, like the Quebec team, like the Halifax team that those two played for. So there's a big gap in how much a team makes depending on their fan base. It's not like a certain set for each team by the league. It's by how your fan base and how much revenue you can create. So the low budget teams are going to fold, but unfortunately you can't tell players you can't make money because your company can't sustain. You can't pay them because your company can't pay them, or your company can't pay them minimum wage. If your company can't pay minimum wage, the company should disband. Not the players should not get paid what they deserve. So players are happy, and they're going to stay in juniors for longer. So they'll stay those 4 years in junior and play for these teams, and this league will eventually get better because you're going to have the best players back for 4 years if they actually make enough money to be happy there. And it also keeps Canadians playing in Canada, which is a big thing about this league. There's a ton of Canadians who are deciding to go to the States now because playing in this league is a big risk. If you get injured, or if you, let's say you don't make a team for a year, you have a bad season, your whole season can be down the drain. You could have got nothing for taking that risk. You can be behind all your friends education-wise. So it'll keep Canadians staying in these leagues and being happy. So the no minimum wage, if they don't change anything, a big effect is that a lot of players, you're going to see a lot of players leaving to the NCAA. You have to weigh the risk and reward. And the NCAA, although the league doesn't get as much fans, it isn't a whole year long. The level is around the same, even though the age in the NCAA is a bit higher. The players are older, but you're going to see a lot of players leaving to the NCAA because they get their education while they're playing hockey. So it's a guarantee to their education. If they get hurt, their education is still part of their package. So there's a lot of unhappy players in the league, but they're all scared to speak up. As the NCAA fight grows also to get players played, this fight will grow. So it's not like if they don't put minimum wage now, the fight's going to go away and players are going to be quiet. A lot of players are growing off the NCAA fight to get money, and it's going to keep going. And the players' union also is starting to grow. The players' union in the past had a lot of corruption, but they just got a new leader named Jerry Diaz, and he's trying to do what's right for the players. So he's trying to get the players happy. And the alternative options that he's trying to get is to try to mimic the NCAA, whereas players go to university and play in these leagues at the same time in Canada, so their education is guaranteed while they're playing for the teams. Or he wants to improve the education packages, so let's say you get the 4 years for sure, the second you step on the ice, so you're not giving away anything by not going to school for those years because you're getting your education paid for. There's going to be no loopholes in the contract, so if you're injured or if something happens out of the blue, you can't be loopholed out of your 4 years of education. He said the players' union isn't necessarily looking to take money away from the leagues, but to look out for the players and to do what's right. So he's not saying he wants every player to make $100,000 a year. That's insane. These players are 15, 16, 17 years old, most of them. So he just wants to look out for the players and to make sure they're not being ripped off by the big business owners. And he wants them to offer also post-education hockey options. So let's say they send them to a certain league, or they have certain options education-wise after they're done hockey. So they'll help them out with school or give them a job or get them started, not just the second they're done, like Sam Berg said, kick them to the side like a greyhound the second they're done using them. So it's time to pay up. If they don't pay up, you're going to see a lot of change in these leagues, and
there's a big fight going on right now. So within the next year or two, there's going to be a big change in these leagues. You're probably